In a futuristic Los Angeles, crime is deterred through the use of a new type of criminal justice system, one in which violent offenders are immediately put on trial for their crimes and have 90 minutes to prove their innocence to an AI judge or be immediately executed. One LAPD officer finds himself on the wrong side of this system and is now in a race against time to prove that he didn't kill his wife. It's Mercy. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Mercy. Mercy, written by Marco van Belle and directed by Timur Bekmambetov, starring Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. And for a complete listing of the cast and crew, please check out the link in our show notes. It is just me today. All right, so Mercy is a film in which Chris Pratt is an LAPD detective who wakes up in a chair and is greeted by an AI that is played by Rebecca Ferguson, which informs him that now, instead of subjecting criminals to a lengthy trial process, that as soon as they're arrested, they're immediately judged by an AI, which executes them if they cannot prove their innocence within 90 minutes. They open by saying you are now guilty until proven innocent, which is how Chris Pratt finds himself in this chair. He is suspected of murdering his wife, and he is informed of her murder by waking up in the chair after an intense hangover. There's then interaction between him and Rebecca Ferguson as the AI as to what the rules of this are. And essentially the whole film is Chris Pratt trying to uncover in 90 minutes who killed his wife. So when I sat down and started watching this, I remember thinking, as soon as I found out that he was accused of killing his wife, I immediately thought, oh, it's The Fugitive, but worse. And then I was like, oh, it's The Fugitive meets Minority Report, but worse. And then as the movie continued, I realized that this film is more like those films Missing and Searching, which came out a few years ago. One of them starring John Cho, the other starring Storm Reed and Sanaa Lathan. No, not Sanaa Lathan. She is the woman that I always confuse for Sanaa Lathan, but is not Sanaa Lathan, but she is in The Best Man, and she played a character named Harper, and she was going to sleep with Taye Diggs, but she did not end up sleep. Nia Long. Thank you. Some of y'all were probably yelling Nia Long at this, but Nia Long was in Searching, John Cho was in Missing, and they are films that play out on a computer screen. The entire film plays out on a computer screen. This movie is a lot like that. As a matter of fact, I would say if you watched those two movies and then you watched this, you'd be like, hey, that was pretty good. I think, especially because those movies do such a good job of building the action over the course of the entire films. They're not very long. I think they're like 90 minutes or less. This movie's only an hour and 40 minutes. So again, when it starts off, I think it's The Fugitive, but worse. But when I think about it along the lines of searching and missing, all of a sudden it's a little bit better. I was a little thrown off because the AI starts off, played by Rebecca Ferguson, is a little sassy, has a bit of an attitude sometimes, while also playing someone who's supposed to be dispassionate and objective, as a computer is wont to be. So it was, I felt like it was a problem, but as the movie continued and it really became a true investigative whodunit, I actually found myself really enjoying it. I thought, yes, the premise is stupid. Yes, there are some dumb things that are happening here. Yes, this is very police state centric. All of the things that I hate. Yes, it feels a little bit like propaganda in some cases. But I really feel like when it got down to the root of it, the bottom line of it, I felt like this was a fine movie. It was perfectly fine. The biggest problems in this movies are from the expectations of the filmmakers and of the studios, and that they would expect me to put on clothes, get into my car, drive to a movie theater, sit down and watch this is absolutely ridiculous. This is by no means a theater movie. And I will also concede that I don't think Missing or Searching were theater movies either. I think those are films that, while good, should be enjoyed in the comfort of your home. And this one is one that if my mom were still with us, I would have showed up at my mom's house and been like, let's watch this. And she would have been like, okay. And we would have watched it in the basement, and my mom would have watched it, enjoyed it, completely forgot about it in 90 minutes after the film was over. It is something that it is dust in the wind. You will forget about this film. However, for those of us that are going through this snowstorm right now, if the snow has indeed fallen, I'm recording this on Saturday. The snow is supposed to come overnight tonight, so you will hear this on Monday. If you hear this on Monday and you are sitting at your home in a snowstorm, this would be the perfect movie to put on. This would be the perfect movie to put on. And that's kind of the fatal flaw of this film, is that most of my questioning of it are the justifications of me spending this much money to watch this in a theater when this is a great streaming film. And that's kind of the problem with the movie industry right now, is that it's harder and harder for them to make that distinction. If I have to go put clothes on, please justify the putting of the clothes on. There's plenty of people who don't care what's on the screen and will watch whatever you put up there. And that's fine. But in terms of y'all trying to make a genuine box office from this, we already have seen that Chris Pratt does streaming movies. He does plenty of streaming movies. Sure, he did Jurassic World. This isn't that. He did, I believe, The Tomorrow War, and there's something else that he did that was also on Amazon. I read the credits of this film. This is a film that I believe also Amazon has some hand in production or studios or attached to, so we will see this on Prime in the future. And maybe that's where it should have started. Granted, things get buried on Prime. Maybe they license it to Netflix or something, but this is a film that would have done well on streaming. And it'd do well if it was on streaming right now during this snowstorm. Instead, I had to watch it in theaters. And watching it in theaters, I remember thinking, this is nice. I'm in my tracksuit and I'm sitting in a recliner, so I feel pretty comfortable. But I would have felt more comfortable with a blanket up to my chin in a warm house that I pay rent for on my couch. That would have been better. The movie itself it's a basic whodunit. And there's a lot of things I saw coming. Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson 100% clocked in. I'm surprised to see Rebecca Ferguson in something like this, lending her gravitas to a film like this. But Rebecca Ferguson also did Silo. However, that's the thing. When Rebecca says yes to a project, she says yes to a project because she thinks it's interesting and she thinks that she can make it better. She can add something to it that makes it good. I know this not because she said it in her interview, although I'm sure you could find it somewhere. But that is how she shows up. When she showed up in Silo, she showed up serious. She showed up ready to play it. She wasn't like, this is some hokey project that's beneath me. She's like, I'm engaged in this streaming property and I want to continue telling the story, and that's important to me. So she did that. This is more of that. She showed up to play the role and she's doing it. She's actually doing the job that she signed up to do. And I don't fault her for that. Although I will say, when I see she's in a project, it is more likely that I will watch that project. And now I'm learning that her showing up doesn't mean the project will be good, but it could mean that she will be good in it. And she is good in this. Chris Pratt is fine in this. He could have been replaced by anyone, but he clocked in and did his job. I just don't think he brought anything special to this role in particular. There is something that happens where the premise of the film is that we're watching this countdown clock, and his percentage of guilt must get below 92% in order for the trial to stop and him not to be executed. Well, at some point, I'm swept away in the investigation. And when that threshold, or when the question of that threshold starts to come up, I remember my question being, how are they going to continue the movie once he drops below the threshold? Because if he does too good of a job investigating, obviously he's going to drop below the threshold. And obviously that's the direction that this film is headed. And I think for me, the answer I got when they got to that point was pretty unsatisfactory, meaning that there is still a countdown clock that exists beyond that point, and that clock felt dumb. There was a more obvious clock that felt like they could have pointed to, but for some reason they felt like this was the clock they should continue to use, which is the clock that's attached to when the 90 minutes are up on the chair, regardless of whether the trial is complete or not. So watching that portion of it, I felt it made the premise seem dumber. And again, this probably isn't something that I would have thought of if I wasn't at a theater. So yeah, with all of that being said, I think this is a 3-star movie, straight across the middle. I think it probably rises to 3.25 or 3.5 if I didn't have to leave the house to watch it. But also, the premise is shaky enough that because I'm now examining those portions of it, because I'm out of the house, I don't think it could rise that far above a 3-star to be anyway, and even in its natural state. Even if I had seen it at home, I would have been like, it was all right, you should watch it, you're at home, you're not doing anything, go ahead and watch it. That's not a stunning endorsement for a film. It's certainly not must-see movie, but yeah, it's good enough. 3 stars. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Round Studios. I mixed this episode, and I am currently recording this right before we head into the snowstorm, which means you will hear this episode on Monday, and I will also edit next week's episode tomorrow as well, tomorrow being Sunday, because I'm going to be stuck in the house, so it makes sense to just get ahead on 2 episodes of Leaving the Theater rather than possibly being in a hole in the weeks to come. There is a lot that I'm working on right now. I'm working on Heartbreaker, the live show. I have to do a lot of marketing to sell tickets, as well as do the content for the show itself, as well as coordinate all the logistics around the show. I am obviously working on Leaving the Theater, as you're hearing it right now, and I'm also working on Wait For It. And I am late on 2 episodes that should have come out 2 weeks ago and this week. And that is the workload that I have right now. I am working very hard at Oh It's Big Round Studios. It's important that this year, 2026, that I work very, very hard in order to accomplish all of the personal career goals, as well as the content goals that I have for Oh It's Big Round and Oh It's Big Round Studios. You can help. You can help by becoming a patron on Patreon. If you're not already there, there are plenty of extras that come with it. You get the ad-free Leaving the Theater feed. You get On the Couch, which we're doing When Harry Met Sally. That's another thing that I'll be recording and doing this coming week. You get I Don't Like That, which will drop this coming week. You get Wait For It extras. We just did a conversation, me and Lindy West, about why we're still talking about Oprah's body. I am working very, very hard. And that's important. because we are delivering all of these things to you via the Patreon, and the money you give us on the Patreon allows me to continue to make this project, Heartbreaker, Wait For It, and future Oh It's Big Ron Studios projects. It's a labor of love, but it is labor. And if that means something to you, go to patreon.com/Oh It's Big Ron or click on the link in our show notes. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Mercy, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, or Letterboxd at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studio shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm a little sassy, has a bit of an attitude sometimes.